Hey you, want to hear a potassium joke? Okay. And you heard that one day oxygen and potassium went on a date. It went, okay. Hello everybody, Dr. Ryan here, board certified specialist internist. Today we are addressing the topic of hyperkalemia. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I encourage you to smash that subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming content. Alright guys, so a normal potassium level is between 3.5 and 5. So anything above 5 essentially is hyperkalemia. All right. Hyperkalemia broadly is divided into that which is due to renal etiologies and that which is due to extra-renal etiologies. Alrighty. And under renal, we talk about diminished clearance, normal clearance, and extra-renal has to do with transcellular shifts by and large. Okay. Under diminished clearance, so you got a patient who has renal impairment, and so if you give them potassium in any way, shape, or form, they're going to eventually develop hyperkalemia, right? So all of potassium intake, like bananas and fruit, that's additional potassium, fruit juices, IV potassium infusion, potassium chloride, constipation can also cause it. Then if your kidneys are normal though, what causes you to retain potassium is certain medications. Classically, your ACE inhibitors and your aldosterone receptor antagonists, your mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists, aldactone, spironolactone, right? Watch out for them. Hypoaldosteronism as well. Because remember, the claim to fame of aldo is that it upregulates the epithelial sodium channel in the distal tubule, which brings in sodium and dumps potassium. But in hypoaldosteronism, you end up with what should be hyponatremia, hypotension, and hyperkalemia. Alrighty. Pseudohypoaldosteronism as well, right? Transcellular shift, probably the most common cause of hyperkalemia. We have medications like ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, we spoke about. Acidemia can cause it. Hyperosmolality can cause it. Rhabdomyolysis, tumor lysis syndrome, where you basically lysing cells and that liberates potassium into the bloodstream. Insulin deficiency. Remember, insulin is the key that unlocks the door for glucose to enter the cells, right? But if you don't have insulin, you end up with potassium remaining outside the cells. The insulin also causes potassium to move into the cells from the bloodstream. Without insulin, you end up with potassium hanging out in the bloodstream, and that's why a lot of patients who present in DKA also present with hyperkalemia. And as you give the insulin to shift the glucose in, potassium also moves in, which is why it's important, very important to do 4-hourly gases in DKA when you're giving the insulin because of the risk of hypokalemia. Then, of course, we have hyperkalemic periodic paralysis. Guys, just to mention some of the ECG changes which happens with potassium disturbance. With hyperkalemia on the right, remember, it's as if somebody is pulling the ECG up and spreading it apart, right? This is from Life in the Fast Lane. Thanks so much, guys. So hyperkalemia means you have peaked T waves, as we can see. We have P wave flattening, all right? We have PR prolongation, and we have a very wide and QRS complex. Eventually, what happens is you have the sine wave configuration, which will then eventually degenerate into ventricular fibrillation. The opposite happens in hypokalemia. It's as if somebody is pushing it down. So you got T wave inversion, you got ST depression, you got a prominent U wave. Guys, how do we manage hyperkalemia? So the infamous potassium shift. Potassium shift is basically where you're giving a dextrose and insulin, so usually 10 units of IV insulin together with 50 mils or 20 mils of 50% dextrose together with calcium gluconate, 10 mils, 10% calcium gluconate. The reason you give calcium gluconate is to stabilize the cardiac membranes. The reason you give insulin is to shift the potassium from the bloodstream into the cells. The reason you give dextrose is you don't want the patient to become hypoglycemic from the insulin. Makes sense, doesn't it? Then, of course, you can give beta-2 agonist, which is also going to shift that potassium in, right? You can give Lasix. Lasix causes you to lose potassium in the urine. Sodium bicarb as well is good. Sodium polystyrene sulfonate, which is otherwise called K-exalate. Right, and if all of these measures fail, then hemodialysis, right? So we said, number 1 is your potassium shift. Number 2 is your beta-2 agonist. Number 3 is your Lasix. Number 4 is your sotabic. Number 5, dialyze the patient. There we go. Okay, guys, let's talk about the duties of being a parent. I'm sure many of us listening to this have kids, right? And it's a biblical duty of us, right, to pray for our kids, right, to show them affection. A is for affection, love, and care. R is to respect, because respect begets respect, all right? E is for education, so it's incumbent on us as parents to make provision for education for our kids. N is to nurture them, right? And T is to train them. The Bible says that the book of Proverbs says, train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. We should pray for wisdom as parents to be able to raise him up in the ways of the Lord. Okay, that was it. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you soon with another rapid review in internal medicine. God bless you.